Hi, in this lesson we are going to talk about how to find all 6 trigonometric functions of a non-acute angle. So we're going to start with an angle that's going to be 120 degrees. So what do we do with problems like this? We need to understand the concept of what's called a reference angle. If I sketch an angle of 120 degrees, this angle is going to be right here. Okay, this is the rotation. So this is 120 degrees. So this is not a right triangle, obviously, but what we can always do is we can complete that to a right triangle and use this here. So this here is going to complete that, and this angle here is 60 degrees. So we're going to use a reference angle of 60 degrees, but you have to be careful with one thing. This will help you find the numbers, but you're still going to have to determine sines of your functions. So let's go ahead and start with doing sine. So it's sine of 120 degrees. We're going to relate that to a sine of 60 degrees, and sine 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. So let's see, where are we? We are in quadrant 2. The value of sine in quadrant 2 is a positive number. So we know it's going to be positive square root of 3 over 2. What about cosine? So cosine 120 degrees. What about cosine of 60 degrees? Cosine 60 degrees is 1/2. But we're in quadrant 2, and cosine in quadrant 2 is a negative value, so it's going to be negative 1/2. To make it easier to go with tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant, I'm going to use some trigonometric ratios that allow us to tie them together. So for tangent, the easiest thing to do, and remember how to deal with that, is going to be sine of 120 degrees divided by cosine of 120 degrees. So all we need to do is divide this number by this number. So it is square root of 3 over 2 divided by negative 1/2. So we're in quadrant 2, tangent is going to be negative there, and this is going to simplify to negative square root of 3. What about cotangent? Well, the easiest thing to do with cotangent is do 1 over tangent. So it's the reciprocal of tangent, which means it's going to be 1 over negative square root of 3, which we do need to rationalize, so we multiply top and the bottom by the square root of 3. To rationalize it, and that's going to give us negative square root of 3 over 3. This value, this value, this value, and this value. Okay, we have secant and cosecant. The easiest way to do secant is, remember, the secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Oh, I forgot the angle here, sorry. Okay, so reciprocal of cosine is going to be 1 over negative 1/2, which is going to give us negative 2. And to find the cosecant of 120 degrees, it's a reciprocal of sine. And then you're going to get 1 over square root of 3 divided by 2, which is going to become 2 square root of 3 divided by 3. Okay, so again, the concept of a reference angle is the one that helps you tie it to a right triangle, but you have to remember that you need to find the sines of the functions that are used. So it's going to be important for sine and cosine, and once you go past those, you just use the trig ratios and you can do everything else from there. Find 6 trigonometric functions of 300 degrees. So where is 300 degrees? It's 60 degrees shy of a full revolution, right? So we're going to be somewhere here. We're going to go like that. That's going to give us 300 degrees, right? So the angle of 60 degrees is going to be right there. And that is going to be what we're going to consider our reference angle. So again, we're going with the reference angle of 60 degrees. Okay, so this is going to be 60. So we are going to get kind of like same values. We just have to be very careful with signs of those. So sine 60 degrees. So sine 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2, but we are in quadrant 4. In quadrant 4, the value of sine is going to be negative, and that means we're going to have negative square root of 3 over 2. Cosine 60, oops, I'm sorry, I meant to say 300, of course. Cosine 300 degrees is going to be, cosine 300 degrees is going to be, cosine 60 is 1/2. We're in quadrant 4. The value of cosine in quadrant 4 is a positive, so it's going to be 1/2. So to find the tangent of 300 degrees, you're going to do sine 300 degrees divided by cosine 300 degrees, which is going to give us this number divided by that number. That's going to end up giving us negative square root of 3, right? Cotangent 300 degrees is going to be the reciprocal of tangent. It's the easiest way to do this one. And that's going to be negative square root of 3 over 3. Secant is going to be the reciprocal of cosine, which is going to give us 2. And cosecant 300 degrees is going to be the reciprocal of sine, and that's going to give us negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so again, same concept. We are going to look at the right triangle that's kind of next to the angle that we'll be dealing with, and then from there we can figure out the values that we know based on special right triangles, and then from there we can go ahead and figure out all the other numbers. We just have to watch out for signs. Okay, 570 degrees. Whoa, we're gonna have to go beyond 360 with that. So let's see. So 360 will be a full revolution, right? And then you're gonna have to go another how many degrees? That's gonna be another 210 degrees, correct? So we're going again, we're going full revolution. That's 360 and 210, so that's 180. So that angle is gonna end up being right here, right? Because that's 180 and 30 more. So this here, but to represent it correctly, you're gonna have to go, remember, one full revolution and come here. So that here is 570 degrees, correct? And we just want to be here, and this angle is gonna end up being 30. And here's our right triangle associated with that, and the reference angle is going to be 30 degrees. So when we do sine of 570 degrees, we're going to rely on that value. So sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. We are in quadrant 3, sine there is negative, so it's going to be negative 1/2. Cosine 570 degrees is going to be, so cosine 30 is square root of 3 over 2. We are in quadrant 3. Cosine is also negative, negative square root of 3 over 2. Tangent of 570 degrees is going to be sine divided by cosine. So it's going to be sine 570 divided by cosine 570, which is going to be negative 1/2 divided by negative square root of 3 over 2. So in this case they're both negatives, and the value of tangent is going to actually be positive, which is going to end up being square root of 3 over 3. Cotangent 570 degrees is going to be the reciprocal of that, so it's simply going to be square root of 3. Secant 570 degrees is going to be, so secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so reciprocal of this value is going to be negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. And finally, cosecant of 570 degrees is going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is going to be negative 2. All right. Let's move on. The angle of negative 135 degrees. Okay, so we're gonna have to go backwards. We're gonna have to go clockwise with that. So this is negative 90 and another 45. So we're gonna be right here with this angle. So we're going here. Okay, so that's minus 135 degrees. So here this angle is going to be 45, and that's going to be a reference angle because this is an acute angle. So basically when we do it, we rely on this angle, but we remember that we have to watch out for the signs of this. So sine negative 135 degrees is going to be, so that's going to be sine of 45 is what we're going to use, which is square root of 2 over 2. We are in quadrant 3, it's going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. The value of cosine actually happens to be exactly the same, because it's a 45-degree angle. The value of sine and cosine are exactly the same, and we're also in quadrant 3 where cosine is negative. Tangent negative 135 degrees is going to end up being 1. Cotangent negative 135 degrees is going to be 1 as well. Secant of a negative 135 degree angle is going to be the reciprocal of cosine, which is going to give you negative square root of 2. And cosecant of negative 135 degrees is going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is also going to give you negative square root of 2. Next example, 11 pi over 6, and now we're dealing with radians, right? There's no degree symbol, not just because there's pi in it, but because we have no degree symbol. So where's 11 pi over 6? So 11 pi over 6, 12 pi over 6 would be 2 pi, so we're almost completing a full circle. We're going to end up being right here, and this is going to be our angle of 11 pi over 6 going like this, right? So this is 11 pi over 6. So this here, this little angle here is going to be pi over 6, which is going to end up being our reference angle, which is the one that we're going to use for our values and then determine the sine. So the reference angle is pi over 6. So what do we know about sine of this? So sine 11 pi over 6. So sine of pi over 6 is going to be 1/2, but we are in quadrant 4 where sine is negative, so it's going to be negative 1/2. Cosine of 11 pi over 6 is going to be related to cosine of pi over 6, which is square root of 3 over 2. We are in quadrant 4 where cosine is positive, so square root of 3 over 2. Tangent of 11 pi over 6 is going to be sine divided by cosine, which is going to give us negative square root of 3 over 3. Cotangent of 11 pi over 6, not sure why I use parentheses here, but it's fine. It's going to be the reciprocal of that, so it's going to be negative square root of 3. Secant of 11 pi over 6. It's going to be the reciprocal of cosine, which is going to be 2 square root of 3 over 3. And cosecant of 11 pi over 6. It's going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is going to give us negative 2.